this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Well, welcome to Red Pill Nation, Daily Dose of Reality. I'm your host, Nathan Davis. Unfortunately, Johnny Henderson will not be on tonight because he is sick. He's home and resting. Hope he feels better soon. Need him back on here so I can make fun of him. Anyway, on to the news. Seattle police deactivate Wi-Fi spy grid after privacy outcry. Now, this came out yesterday that the Seattle police were putting up white Wi-Fi boxes on telephone poles. And they said it was, for fast response and all this other stuff. And so they could triangulate where you're calling from, things of that nature. But these white boxes could do more than just, triangulate where somebody's calling from, and really they can do that anyway. These were basically blanketing the city with a Wi-Fi signal that could track cell phones even if they were not connected to the network. The system can also collect a mobile user's IP address, mobile device type, apps use, current location, and even historical locations. So basically, they could track where you have been. And this was broken by InfoWars and the Drudge Report. And like the next day, because it came out in mainstream media, because it was in Drudge Report, Seattle temporarily disabled it. And this is a $2.7 million system. So you're basically, the taxpayers are being paid, or are paying to be spied on. They're their tax dollars. And this is just a testing phase, because they could use this, everywhere. This is probably a testing ground just to see how it would work, and then see what's going on from there. But anyway. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is I do apologize for being late. Tonight, me and my wife found out that what we're having. I will announce that on Friday once we've told everybody, but my wife's pregnant, and we found out tonight what we're having. And we went out to dinner to celebrate with my mother. So that's the reason that the show was a half an hour late tonight, so I do apologize for any live listeners for that. Anyway, getting back to the news. Just wanted to let everybody know that. But anyway, in this report that came out on Fox DC, myfoxdc.com, a police used a taser for 42 seconds to subdue a man. Now, what they did was really bad. I mean, they came down this slight hill on Saturday and slammed into the back of five parked cars. I guess they accordioned them together. The driver got out and ran. The passenger proceeded to get out and told the bystanders that were watching that if they called the police, basically he would hurt them. Some of them called the police anyway. The officer arrived. He was a sole officer, and the guy did resist arrest, but once he tased him and had him on the ground, he proceeded to keep tasing him for 42 seconds, which is an extensive amount of time. I mean, if you get tased for a second, it feels like an eternity. So, I think that was uncalled for force. He had him subdued. He could have then just gone ahead and put the cuffs on him. So, yeah, that is, I think, an abuse of power right there. School's new spy system places children under complete surveillance. And this was... I didn't get to read the full thing because I have been out most of the day doing different things. This is in Oakland, California, and they're putting in real-time surveillance sensors mounted inside the classroom of a charter school in Oakland, California. And basically, it's supposed to detect gunshots, but it's recording. So it could record conversations and basically triangulate who's saying what. And that could be used against something. And so it's kind of against a privacy, but again, it's a public school, so I don't know, what grounds they could say, well, that's, immoral. I really think that, putting in gunshot detectors is why are we doing that? Why don't we put armed guards in schools? I know people sit there and go, oh, no. I mean, the main thing is that there were people sitting there talking about teachers having guns. I think if they have, a license, concealed carry license, they are licensed and have a permitted weapon, that could be something that could be considered by school districts. But at the minimum, why can't we have armed security guards in the schools? That would be a bigger deterrent than these gunshot detectors, because by that point, a gun has been fired and somebody's dead or injured. So, I mean, this is basically after the fact. After the fact. Basically, somebody's already fired the gun in the classroom, and now we have to wait 10 minutes for police to get there, if not longer. Because it depends on the district you're in. Our district's pretty good. We're under 10 minutes usually on police response time, but some places are worse. Some places will put you on hold when you call the police, or not even respond to you. There was one that came up, I think yesterday or the day before, where a 17-year-old girl called the police department, and because she cussed, the dispatcher hung up on her not once, not twice, but 3 times. And the reason she was calling, and the reason she was hysterical, and the reason she was cussing was her father was having a seizure. Luckily, the man did not die. But the fact of the matter is that, he didn't even get punished. He did not get punished for his actions. Here he put somebody's life in danger. Here this woman's calling for assistance for her father, and he ignores it. So obviously he doesn't know his job. So anyway, I mean, even if they thought it was somebody abusing the system or prank call or whatever, you send somebody out there because that's an arrestable offense. But no, he just hung up on her 3 times. So, but anyway, I mean, so the responsive time of the system isn't very good, depending on where you are. And then you're just going to put these detectors in there, supposedly gunshot detectors. And, of course, this came up in InfoWars as well. I didn't get to peruse a lot of sites today. Again, like I said, I was busy. But so how is that going to help stop gun violence? Because the fact of the matter is that they don't care. They know that they can get in the school, they can shoot up the school, and by the time they're done, then the police are alerted. So it's kind of an after-the-fact types, device. It's not something that's preventative. Having armed guards in schools is preventative because they're less likely to go in there and shoot up the place. I mean, here's the thing, is that a lot of these shootings happen, if not all of them, most all of them, happen in gun-free zones. And that's the problem. A lot of these violent activities happen in gun-free zones. Why? Because nobody's got a weapon to defend themselves. What's the easiest target? Somebody that can't defend themselves. And somebody that's insane would prefer that. They don't want somebody firing back. If you're a criminal, if you're, deranged, you're usually cowardice in the first place. You know, a lot of these people have a self-preservation attitude. Look at the Aurora shooting. He when confronted with a gun, dropped his weapon. Now, we can look at it as he was deranged, and he went in there, and he shot all these people up, and then when he was confronted with a weapon, he surrendered. Or we could look at it in the conspiracy sense that he was an MK Ultra mind-controlled person that, they gave a call, a sign to drop his weapon, and that was kind of the thing that snapped him out of it, or something, like that. And that's something that's real, that's happened. There was court cases, there was congressional hearings held back in 1995 with these people that went through MK Ultra and all these different things that were done to them. So it's a possibility that these type of things are still going on. There's documentation that shows that the government was doing these things, and that was, declassified. So the stuff that hasn't been declassified on these type of tests and programs, who knows? Who knows what they're doing? And I'm going to get into some other stuff later on about basically how to present conspiracies and things like that, and how not to go after people, and that's going to be in the last half hour of my normal half-an-hour rant about something. And I've chosen this. But anyway, back into the news. The Federal Reserve whistleblower tells America the real reason for quantitative easing. And I've read this before. It's nothing new. There's been speculators that have said this, that the reason that they're doing quantitative easing is a bailout for Wall Street. And that's a no-brainer for the most part. But it is good to see somebody come out that's on the inside and say, you're right. He also apologized because he participated in the quantitative easing process from 2009 to 2010, and he publicly apologized for what he has done. And he said that it accomplished next to nothing for the average person on the street. Instead, he says that it has been done to basically bail out Wall Street. And this, again, was in Infowars.com. Excuse me. So, here is somebody that was on the inside, that saw what they were doing, that's now coming out and apologized because he feels guilty for what they're doing and what he did and what he participated in, saying that they were basically bailing out Wall Street. And that's true. If you look at it, when they do quantitative easing, all of a sudden stocks start going up. They improve. The market improves. When they stop quantitative easing, the market drops. So it's falsely stimulating the market. It's falsely propping up the market. And that's a negative because it's not allowing certain things to crash that more than likely would. The other thing is that more than likely a lot of things are going to start crashing because our currency is on the way out. I mean, there's so many analysts, so many economists, so many people that are saying our currency is, in its death throes. It is just, gasping for air. It's auditory response, basically. And quantitative easing is basically life support. That's it. This life support for the economy. It's life support for our system that's failing. And it's going to cause a whiplash effect. It's going to cause it's already causing a bubble. The bubble's going to burst. The thing of it is, are you ready? Are you ready for this? And I don't think a lot of people are. The bubble is on the verge, people. Be prepared. Be prepared for economic collapse. We've never seen it in this country like this before. It'll make the Great Depression look like, child's play. Sheriff Joe Arpaio, he's the sheriff in Arizona, is in the headlines again. He's not one of my favorite people. I mean, he's very pro-drug war, very authoritative. He is very authoritative in nature. And he runs a jail, not a prison. There was a lot of people cheering his antics, and I think that they're abhorrible. They're horrible. How dare he treat people that haven't gone to trial? That's the thing, is that they're innocent until proven guilty, and he's treating them like they're already guilty. And that's not how our system's supposed to work. When they're held in jail, they're held for trial. They're not held there to be treated and abused like they're already in prison. And even in prison, there's supposed to be a level of respect. And I think that we should have more programs to rehabilitate, if possible. Of course, if you got some mass murder that killed 20 or 30 people, then they're not going to be somebody you can really rehabilitate. But those that you can rehabilitate because of they robbed or they did something, we should be doing that. And they're not. They're releasing these people back into society, and they commit worse crimes and come back because they can't cope outside, because they're not prepared, because our penal system is failing them. But anyway, he has implemented these new tactics, and let's see, what is he doing? Of course, he's running drones to spy on drug dealers. He sees that if we crack down on drugs, on dealers and drug use and all this, that we can wipe it out. It's not going to work. Of course, he one time said that when America goes to war, we go to win. Obviously, he doesn't know American history. The Korean War never was ended, and we did not win the Vietnam War. But anyway, nobody said he was a rocket scientist. He's basically restricting non-patriotic inmates to a diet of bread and water. And the way he can tell that you're non-patriotic is he puts an American flag sticker in your cell. If you deface that American flag sticker, you are put on a diet of bread and water. And 10 inmates have already challenged this and are now on a diet of bread and water. Again, these inmates have not gone to trial. So they're not convicted criminals. That's why I don't like his tactics, is he's not, understanding his role as sheriff. Everybody cheers this. Well, you're an authoritative person if you cheer this, because you don't understand that these people have not been convicted of a crime yet. Okay? If they've been convicted of a crime, then we can debate how we should treat them. But this is just something that I think is overstepping his bounds as a sheriff. And I know people say, oh, you're wrong, whatever. He's also playing the national anthem and God Bless America every day and forcing the inmates to sing along, regardless of their ethnicity, place of birth, or political affiliations. If they refuse, they're punished. What's the other thing he was doing? Oh, he's also gone to a vegetarian diet because it's cheaper, which, if it saves money and improves their diet, so be it. That's not a big deal to me. What's a big deal is basically, punishing people that have not been proven guilty yet by a jury of their peers. So I think that's overstepping his bounds, and he really doesn't understand the law very well. And here's another one. Kevin Trudeau. Now, you all know him as the TV pitchman who pitches books like Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About, Weight Loss Cures They Don't Want You to Know About, all these different ones. Well, he was convicted on basically, I think it was perjury or lying, because he lied to people. Because a judge said, don't do it anymore. In 2004, he said, you're not supposed to make false claims about your book. And he continued to do so, I guess. My thing is that with this, which he got, I think, 9 years in jail. And he has a $37 million judgment to basically pay. It's a class action lawsuit against him that he says he can't pay because he doesn't have money, and they're saying that he's hiding money, which, that's his choice. But my thing is that he's saying that they're saying that he lied about what was in his book. Well, nobody forced people to buy his book. Nobody forced to take his research at face value. And, you know, people lie all the time publicly, you know, in infomercials. How many infomercials really tell the truth? I mean, really, there's so many products that come out all the time that make outrageous claims about the what their product does. They've been doing it for years. And nobody else has been arrested for lying in an infomercial. I mean, please, this is the first time I've ever read somebody got arrested because they lied in an infomercial. Well, Ron Popeil and the rest should be arrested too because they made false claims about their products. You know, they didn't live up to the expectations that they put out there. No product actually does. I mean, you know, because most of the time people don't use it the way that they say you're supposed to use it. And a lot of the products that are put out there are not well made. Just like anything you buy in Walmart. But that's the thing, is that nobody has been convicted before because they lied in an infomercial. And it just shows a overstepping of bounds by our judicial system to now say that you cannot make false claims. Well, there's been snake oil salesmen since time immemorial, and the thing of it is that it's your decision whether you buy that product or not. And whether you decide to do your research or not, especially in today's age where you can go on the internet and do your research. I mean, some of the things that he had in, what was it? Natural cures they don't want you to work, don't want you to know about. Because I watched the infomercial, never bought any of his products because, you know, you can research it on the internet and find it yourself, and I'd rather do that. But things like drinking, a tablespoon of vinegar instead of using an antacid, works for heartburn. Some of the things that he was making claims about in that were true. But I'm not going to sit there and take his research at face value and say, okay, I'm going to buy it hook, line, and sinker. I'm going to do my own research and find out for myself. There's other things being sold now, too, that you can find for free on the internet. But it's basically people don't want to do their own research, and then they buy the book, and then they get mad because the claims that are being made aren't true. Or that they're more work than they thought they'd be. This, to me, is just ludicrous. You can't sit there and arrest somebody because they lied in an infomercial. I mean, again, Ron Popeil, all these people be in jail. Give me a break. So that's what I found out in the news today. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff going on. Sorry, my I'm kind of getting congested here. But it's just, I mean, the Federal Reserve, we need to be prepared. Quantitative easing, that's something that isn't going to work. It's the last thing they know what to do. They don't know what else to do. That's all it is. And you have people that are using Keynesian economic strategies and are blind. I mean, and I was looking at a book online. It was basically Ron Paul versus, I can't remember the Keynesian economics economist name, but there were people saying, oh, it's so one-sided, it's all for Ron Paul and all this, and it was like, well, maybe because Ron Paul's right. Maybe because Ron Paul predicted the bursting of the real estate bubble back in 2001. And Peter Schiff predicted it back in 2006 before the 2008 collapse. These people used Austrian economic strategies to figure this stuff out. So if it's one-sided, it's because Austrian economics has a better predictive nature to it than Keynesian. They, a lot of Keynesian economists, I want to keep saying economists, after, the 2008 and 2009 collapses, were like, well, how could we have predicted that? There was no signs that was going to happen. And Peter Schiff was, saying this on all kinds of news networks that, there's going to be a collapse. There's going to be a bursting of this real estate bubble. And they all they all laughed at him and thought he was crazy. And it was proven right. But then after the fact, they made it out like, who could have predicted this? Well, Austrian economists could have, or somebody that's a free market economist. Any other strategies? I mean, Milton Friedman could have predicted it. So it just doesn't make any sense, that that people have bought into Keynesian economics and believe that it's the only way to run the economy, and it's running us into the ground. It has an end point. It has a point where it ends. I mean, all these strategies, all these different currency systems eventually have a falling off. And we're reaching that point, and people don't want to realize it. People want to enjoy the spoils, and the riches that they have until the end. And then they're going to freak out and panic. It's kind of like the grasshopper and the ant. I keep using this analogy because it is. The ant kept preparing for winter, and the grasshopper just lounged around. So what are you worrying about? Why are you storing up? It's a long ways away. And then winter came, and here the grasshopper was caught off guard. He enjoyed his summer. He didn't toil. He didn't work. He didn't save up anything. And here he is out in the cold going, I didn't know this was going to happen. How could I have known? And you have people doing that all the time. They laugh at you. Don't get discouraged. Don't ever get discouraged because people sit there and point fingers and laugh and call you names and say you're crazy, because you know what? You're the one that's preparing yourself. You're the one that's preparing yourself with knowledge and information, and you understand, whether it's, you're still learning or not, you understand to a point what's going on. You understand what's going on isn't right. You understand what's going on isn't going to work. I would say don't get all your information from one, breadbasket. Don't get it from just InfoWars. I have stuff from Huffington Post in here. I have stuff from, even though Huffington Post is a predominantly liberal paper, I'm open to, everybody's opinion. I'm open to all these different ones. The one about Judge Pio, even though they were talking highly of him, was the Free Patriot, which is a conservative. Some of their stuff's libertarian, some of it's a little neocon, but hey, I get it from InfoWars. The Blaze every once in a while. The Blaze right now keeps running a lot of stuff from Fox News, and it's like, I thought you left Fox News, Glenn Beck. Why do you keep talking about it? But anyway, so I mean, I peruse these sites, especially on most days. Today I didn't really have a lot of time. I mean, we had a lot of things going on, but there's so much information out there. If you find good articles on a site, favorite that site or bookmark it. That way you can, and I have like different bookmarks for different things I'm interested in. I have like 30,000 folders of bookmarks, but that's an exaggeration, but I have a lot of bookmark folders. And I have a folder that says news sites. And I put all these different news sites in there, and then I can just go to that little folder and then go down the list. And then I fixed the page on my website, libertythemovement.com. I was having some paging issues, and I found out it was a little size allocation in the coding of my PHP script that is put out by the web host that I built everything upon, and so I just changed that variable. Boom, fix the problem. So you can go there. I've got a number of different news sites there. If you know of any that you'd like added to it that have an RSS feed, let me know, and I'll add the feed to it. But yeah, peruse and do your own research. Look at public information. I mean, I had a guy a couple days ago that somebody posted on Facebook. What did they post? They posted something, about FEMA camps. And this guy was like, oh, that's BS. There's the FEMA camps aren't real and blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, really? Then why is it in legislation? My response was, why is it in legislation? Why are there FEMA regions? Why is there this? Why is there that? And he wrote back, I don't know, because I guess you believe everything you read on the internet. Really? I wrote him back and I said, I don't believe everything I read on the internet. I research and double check, everything. Try to, at least. And then I posted a link to the actual bill that became law that had to do with FEMA camps, that also had in there about the FEMA regions. Of course, he didn't reply back, but I was like, look, dude, there is information out there if you look for it. He said he did all this research, but in a few short seconds, I found the law, posted it up there, and said, look, this has to do with it. And that's the thing, is you got to do research and look in public information, look at the laws, look at the bills coming forward, look at them for your state and local as well. I'm backlogged on that. I need to look into what's coming up. But look into those different things because they affect your life. And there's certain things in there that are hidden in plain sight that are scary, and then when you bring it to people's attention, they're like, oh, that's conspiracy. And it's like, well, why is it in legislation? That's what I don't get. And that's what I want to talk about in the last half hour, is presenting things that come off as conspiracy to people. And what I'm going to do is take a real quick break because I need to get something to drink. But when I come back, I'm going to talk about that, and we're going to go into what to do about that. All right. Well, sorry about that. My throat was I was getting a little congested here, so I need to take a little break. But anyway, what I want to go into in this last half hour is about how to approach people with things that come off as conspiracy. People have labeled everything a conspiracy that does not go with mainstream news. Anything that does not fit in with the mainstream identity is labeled a conspiracy. And that's a big negative. When we label everything conspiracy, that makes it so people do not listen. They don't want to hear anything that goes against their point of view. And there are people that throw around labels. I get so tired of that too. I took economics in school. I have a degree in it, or I'm a scientist. And for me, that's a cop-out. That's something that you use when you really don't have an argument about something, and what you go to is your status. And that's supposed to intimidate people, into not arguing with you because they're all-knowing. Well, I'm sorry, you're human first and you're not infallible. You are a human, okay? And you can be wrong within your study, within your area of study. And when somebody challenges you with it, don't bring up your ego, because that's not going to resolve anything. And so this goes out to the people that don't like to be challenged. For me, I don't mind being challenged. If you present me a challenge, I will research it. I will look into it. I will see if I'm wrong. And then I'll rebut if I'm not. I don't throw around status. I don't throw around any of that because it's not a point. That has nothing to do with the argument. Why can't we have an intelligent argument? And then, what about debate? That's an evil word nowadays, because when people see debate, they see what they see on the news, which isn't debate. That's not a civil debate. I've seen so many civil debates between atheists and Christians and Keynesian economists and Austrian economists and liberals and conservatives, not necessarily Republicans and Democrats, but liberals and conservatives. And that's the thing, is that's civil debate. That's taking it and looking at the issue and debating your point, listening to somebody else, coming up with a rebuttal. And that's how we resolve issues, as we have civil debates. The thing of it is that, we can call it a discussion or anything like that. It's still a debate, because you have two different points of view. You can label it whatever you want. It's a debate. It's a civil debate. The problem is that people are so used to seeing uncivil debates. They're so used to seeing personal attacks in debates that that's what they think debating is. And it's really not. If you watch a legitimate debate, you have somebody on one side, somebody on the other, and they'll write down points as the other one's talking, but they do not interrupt them. They do not turn it into a personal attack. They attack the ideas. They attack the mindset. They attack the point of view, and break it down and explain it from their perspective. And it just goes back and forth, and you it's kind of like molding clay. You come out with something at the end. It may not be anything recognizable, but you come up with something, and everybody leaves there with kind of a different perspective than what they may have had coming in. And that's the thing, is that if you invite debate, if you invite civil arguments, it's not a bad thing. But I see so many people in the conspiracy realm that get overly defensive. Even mainstreamers, even the ones that are out there at the top, Alex Jones, Glenn Beck. Nothing against them. But I notice a lot of the times that when they have guests on or they have callers, they overtalk them. They use the same tactics that the mass media uses. The mass media is great at that. Bill O'Reilly and Ed Schultz and others love to overtalk people they disagree with. And that's not, that's rude. It's not civil. And it's nothing against Alex Jones or Glenn Beck, but I think they really need to analyze their approach, because there's certain people that don't like listening to them not because of what they're saying, but how they're delivering it. It's kind of in your face and, blow after blow. I know we're at a critical point. I know we're at a critical junction, but I don't think that using the same emotional rhetoric that is used by the mass media is effective. And it's sad to see. I mean, yes, me and Johnny sometimes get into heated debates. We got into one last week. But it's mutual respect. He's my friend, and I'm his friend. So there's mutual respect there. But we don't get that with too many of these individuals. And Alex Jones, he has presented a lot of great evidence, information, things of that nature, but he can be in your face, and he can overtalk somebody. I've heard him say, "I'll give you 10 minutes," and then like 2 minutes in, he's yelling at the person, and it's like, dude, I mean, it's not conveying a civil manner. And the same with Glenn Beck. I mean, the other thing with Glenn Beck that I have an issue with is the fact that he comes off as, ethereal. Look at how great I am. And that's off-putting. I think that really we have to look at these things and we have to say, you know what, all right, I know we all have different personality traits, but there's certain personality traits that we all have that can be a negative. And when you allow your ego to rule, and I even have friends that, they and that's another thing, is passive aggressiveness. That's one thing that irks me. I can't stand it. And a lot of Democrats and liberals, and not only, and they're Republicans too, and conservatives that do it as well, but they do this passive aggressive thing. they do little snide comments just thrown into their commentary or their discussion that's a put down to you. And they don't know they're doing it. And then when you say, hey, you're being a little passive aggressive, or you're being a little insulting. Oh, that's you. That's your interpretation. That's not what's really being said. I know that I'm not being aggressive. That's not me. Okay. Well, it's all interpretation. And when the only way we learn, the only way we grow is if we listen to people and how they're perceiving us. And if somebody's perceiving us as being passive aggressive or snide or whatever, listen to that. Don't get offended, because that's the ego. That's your ego. The ego is yourself, and it also describes the defense of yourself. And there are people that are overly defensive. When somebody, and we're all guilty of it. I've been guilty of it. Everybody's guilty of it. But there's people that do it all the time. And then when you point that out to them, they get really pissed off, and they, how dare you? And that's a problem that we have. People don't want to listen to one another. When somebody says you're being passive aggressive, or hey man, you're insulting me, apologize. Say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't know I was coming off that way. That's not what I meant, or whatever. But that's how you resolve things. I've apologized to people because they misinterpreted what I was saying. And if you're writing things, if you're in a blog, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, if you're on any kind of public forum, writing, sometimes it can be misinterpreted. Even if you're the best writer in the world, you can be misinterpreted. So don't get offended when somebody sits there and tells you, hey, you're being, insulting. Take that as a lesson. Take that as, all right, I need to reconfigure how I, debate these things so that I don't come off that way. Because your whole point is to get through to people. Wake them up. There's certain people that's not their point. But it should be. We're at a critical junction. We need to wake people up. You don't do it by getting in their face and yelling and screaming at them. It doesn't work. I love when Alex Jones sits there and says that, I've done all these great things, and that's perfectly fine. But he's gained popularity not because just of him, but because of the Liberty Movement, Ron Paul, all these different things that brought people to him because they got tired of the mass media. And I will say a lot of people went to Alex Jones and other people because, and I will say that with me too, in 2008 and 2012, the GOP nominations, when they were doing that, I saw the hypocrisy. I saw the failings of the system. I saw Ron Paul being ignored. I saw him getting only a small percentage of the questions. I saw that there was something very suspicious going on. And I think a lot of other people did too. And in the 2012, election cycle, during some of the debates, people were like, let Ron Paul answer. I mean, there were people in the audience actually yelling at the commentator like, dude, what are you doing? And so a lot of people woke up to the fact that I even had my mother, who's not really into politics, sit there and say, yeah, I saw what you were saying. I saw that they ignore him. He's not mentioned. It's like he doesn't exist. And when they read off who's, in the upper levels, they would skip over him. And I think a lot of people woke up to that and they're like, okay, what's going on here? And so they looked to alternative media sources to kind of explain to them what's really going on, because it was an eye-opener for a lot of people that it's not fair and balanced, as Fox News puts it, but all media comes across as that they're being fair and balanced and blah, 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 even though they're not. And it's not one side against the other. There's just one side just being portrayed in two different colors, blue and red. That's it. I mean, there's really not much difference between the two parties anymore, because they figured out that if you give some kind of semblance of difference, that you can control the people. I mean, they had already picked out Mitt Romney before even you knew everybody that was going to be running under the GOP, they were really toting Mitt Romney this time. Before it was McCain. And they were toting him from the beginning. And he was the talking points. He took up the most time. So they were pushing him as the person to go for. During the in '08 with the Democrats, you had basically Obama being the key person they kept pushing, even though he was an unknown that nobody knew anything about him. He came out of nowhere. He was a freshman senator. Nobody knew anything about him. But he was the great hope. And in that same election cycle, they put Ron Paul down because of some old, perceived racist newsletters that were written under his name that weren't written by him, that he said repeatedly he didn't write. But very little was, put under Obama for, going to a church hosted by a very racist Reverend Wright. And that just kind of got swept under the carpet. Nobody sat there and said, maybe he holds the same views. He goes to the church. I mean, that's the thing, is that he said, I don't agree with everything he says. Well, you go to his church, you treat him like a father figure, so you must agree with a lot of what he says then. I mean, it's not something where you sit there, you go to a church that you disagree with a doctrine. But anyway, that's getting off subject. So we had a lot of people went to Alex Jones and Glenn Beck's and all these other different people because they saw the hypocrisy with the mass media. And I'm not putting down Alex Jones. I'm not putting down his accomplishments. He's done a lot of good, But he totes that line that, his ego comes out. And I think that, and he's worked on it. He's working on it. He's working on, squelling that. And I think Glenn Beck's working on humbling himself too, to a point. I don't think they'll ever get to that point where they're fully humble, but, I mean, they're working on it. And I'm not putting him down. Per se, I'm just pointing out how people perceive them and what kind of pushes people away. But in the same note, you have people that go after Alex Jones and call him a shill and call him a gatekeeper because they say he doesn't agree with all their conspiracies. And I'm just sitting there going, well, he's human. He's not going to buy into every conspiracy. He's not going to take sides with everything you believe. That's the thing about conspiracies. You might have evidence, and I think that you should present it to, people. If you have evidence to show certain things within your concept to prove your point. But not everybody's going to bite. Not everybody's going to buy into it. And just because somebody's into conspiracies and they don't buy into it, you don't sit there and label them as a gatekeeper. I mean, everybody has their kind of moral box that they won't go outside of. That, all right, that's a little too far out there. I don't know about that. And so he has that box. He has where, he understands certain things and there's certain other things he just doesn't agree with. It's just how we all are. And we have to learn that not everybody's going to agree with your concepts, even within the same realm of thought. It's kind of like libertarians. We don't all agree on a lot of different subjects, and we don't sit there and get mad at one another and call, well, you're not a real libertarian because you don't believe what I believe. No. We understand that we all have individual ideas, but we're going towards the same goal. So why all this infighting? Why infight? And I see it in this realm with conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and I try to not get involved in it too much because I just don't, it's not worth my time. I did, though, today with chemtrails, somebody that said that they're nonsense, and I said, well, aluminum has been found in higher levels than what before. There's not substantial proof, yada, yada, yada. Then I brought up Alzheimer's, that's not substantial proof. And he brought up that he did some research in 5 minutes, and there's no substantial proof. But I did research, and I found in 5 minutes that there's conflicting evidence, that it's not as cut and dry as aluminum doesn't have any effect with Alzheimer's patients. There's those that say it does. There's say that it affects early onset. There's some that say it doesn't. So there's different schools of thought within, the realm of MDs. So in in colleges and universities. So I read a number of different papers, and they were from different views, but it didn't totally say that aluminum did not have anything to do with it. And he brought up that basically that jet exhausts can produce cloud formation, things of that nature, and I agree with him. But when you see jets that have tanks on their tail wings, or separate tanks spewing out something besides their jet engines, it makes you wonder what they're spraying. Then you have it in legislation that was presented that they haven't fully gone through with. It's still in the books, but that was talking about doing this in order to counteract the effects of global warming. But they could not give out substantial evidence that increasing the amount of aluminum in the atmosphere, because it's going to eventually fall down, increasing the amount of aluminum in the environment would not have an impact on human health, because they didn't have enough studies to show that. And so having this legislation is a dangerous thing, because if it's passed and they're allowed to do that, here we're doing something that really has shaky scientific ground. We don't know what the long-term ramifications are. Science can't do that. It's kind of like the pharmaceutical companies. They put stuff out there with short-term studies, and then they find out later on, 20 years down the line, that long-term it has massive effects, because they didn't do long-term studies. So, that's the thing, is that there's a lot of information out there, and it's very frustrating because you research and you do all this stuff and you present it, and there's going to be people that are going to counteract you. But never did I get, personal with anybody. I never get personal with people. Unless they're my friends, then I might, do a joking jab, but that's because they know me, and they know that I'm joking. But with people I don't know, and I'm debating issues with, I have had so many civil debates, and people thank me, and I thank them for having a civil debate. Even if we come out in the end that we still don't agree fully, we appreciate the fact that it never went to a level of, name-calling. And I see that so many times. I've had people, and they're on my side. And because they misread something I wrote, start calling me all kinds of names. And I'm like, you misread what I wrote. That's not what I said. Reread it. And thanks for calling me names. I mean, and it's like you might want to re-examine how you approach people. Because there are people out there that they go into the attack before, even debating somebody. That's the thing, is that we have to really work on this as a country, and really mainstream media is fueling the fire, because that's how they deal with things, is they sit there and make it, a personal debate, a personal argument. I mean, they call people anti-American because they disagree with their perspectives. If you disagree with Obamacare, you're anti-American. You're cruel, you're heartless, because you don't want to give health care to everybody. And, even on the House floor, when they had the House meeting with Tavener, and one of the Democrats got up and said, you Republicans, you're heartless, and you don't want to give health care to anybody, and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, dude, really? No, it has to do with the fact that they don't agree with the concepts of and the direction you want to go to solve this problem. Hello? It doesn't mean they're heartless people. I think that they're all probably, greedy, heartless people, because of the fact that, they're more for their backers, and that shows with their policy creation. That's not just saying it to say it. It's just showing with their policy creation it's for there's special interest groups that fund their campaigns and not for their constituents. There are some up there that are for their constituents, but they're few and far between. And then they get labeled because they're not siding with any special interest. And that's what I don't get. You know, it's with politics, it's with the media, it's with everything. I go on the attack because I don't agree with you. Instead of listening, rebutting, they listen and rebut back. A civil debate. Debating the ideas, the ideologies, the theories, the concepts. And when you turn it into a personal attack, even if they're being, attacking you personally, if you do it back, you're just as wrong. Just either ignore it or bring it to their attention. Hey, that's kind of insulting or whatever. But there's certain people they won't see that they're human. I mean, that's the thing, is that there are people that do not realize they're human. I don't think. I think that they think that they're above you. I'm of the concept that nobody's above anyone else. The poor man on the street begging for money, a legitimate poor man on the street begging for money, is no better, or is no worse, than somebody that has a limousine and is rich. They're both human. They're both going to die. They both have dreams and ambitions. Just somebody's down and out, and somebody's in the high life. But that could change all in an instant. People need to be aware of that. And unfortunately, we have people in power that believe they're above everyone else, and that they believe the hype. They believe the hype that's been, put on them. That they're great, and they're so awesome, and blah, blah, blah. And there's people that feed into that because they deify these people. It really gets to me when people sit there and cry. And, get all emotional because they meet a celebrity or they meet someone. It's like they're a person, They just do something that's in the public eye. You might enjoy the work, and if I met an actor, I'd be like, oh, I liked your movies, they're cool. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, and crying hysterically, and there are guys that do that too. I just don't get that. I really don't understand it at all. It's like Miley Cyrus was on the MTV. I don't think I brought that up. MTV European Music Awards. And, of course, there was one thing, and I put it up on Red Pill Nation group, but if you look in the background, on the screens in the background, they had these eyes that were made out of pyramid-like shapes, and they were just like two independent eyes. They were moving around independently, looking around, and it was like, wow, that's some, interesting symbolism there. That could be construed as, Illuminati or New World Order symbolism, and I'm sure people will bring that up in YouTube and other areas about, hey, did you see these eyes? I brought that up. I was like, isn't that odd? But, here's Miley Cyrus and some weird get-up dancing with a midget, and I only watched this on YouTube because, somebody posted, and I was like, okay. So I looked at it, and what really got me was at the end of this video, there was this girl, and she was in the audience, and they show her snapping a picture of Miley Cyrus and then breaking down and starting to cry because she captured a picture of Miley Cyrus. And I'm like, are you serious? I was just looking at the screen going, are you serious? Your life cannot be that pathetic. That's what I think, because, if people were that into their own life, into people that really do affect their lives, the world would be a better place. We wouldn't have the problems we have. We wouldn't have had, we wouldn't have gone down this path. We would not have gone down the road that we went down. We would not have had the Federal Reserve. We wouldn't have had all these different things come about. Because more people would have stood up. More people would have been like, you know what, this doesn't make any sense. But they fell for the distractions, and they're still falling for the distractions that are put out there. But my point is to the groups out there and to the people out there that are into this, that are awake, that are, understanding what's going on to whatever level, don't go after them. Don't sit there and name call. Don't yell at them. In person or on the internet. Don't do that. I see so much of that, and I'm just like, ugh. I mean, because it makes us all look bad. It makes everybody that's, awake and understands that there's certain things going on that aren't right, look like we're all crazy because here's a yelling, screaming idiot, And really, how are you any better? Don't do that. Alex Jones and others can do it because they're on a podium. They have a soapbox where they can yell and scream. And they have an audience, a captive audience, people that really respect what they have to say. I respect what they have to say, but I just think they need to change their methodology if they're really going to get through to other people. Because there's certain people that just despise them, not for what they're saying, but how they're saying it, But anyway, don't do that. Don't take on and assimilate that type of attitude in how you react to people, because you're going to push people away. You're going to lose people. My thing is that, and I am in a field, I work in an industry where it's ever changing, and I deal with people that, because I work in the tech support field, where people come at me and they're emotionally, just agitated at what's going on with their, product, and I have to resolve that for them. So I've learned to, over years, I've been doing this for 8 years, I've learned how to not go on the defensive, but how to basically empathize with people and their situation and how to help resolve it. And if you work with somebody, if you deflect the emotional argument and go to the rudimentary stuff, the actual argument that's there, and you attack that, not the person, because they could be very irate and irrational. But if you leave that alone, they lose that because it doesn't affect you. The moment it affects you, the moment you give in to that, I'm sure you've heard that 1,000 times, in your life, they win. You lose. You haven't woken them up. You haven't even sent a spark into them that, maybe I'm wrong. Because that's the thing, is that you want to spark something in them to do their own research. You're not necessarily the prophet there telling them everything. You want them to have that spark to go do it themselves. And I think that's the problem, is that there's so many people that don't do that. They don't go out there and they actually don't do their, their message any favors. Because anybody that disagrees with them, they just start yelling and screaming at them. And it doesn't work. It doesn't prove you right. Excuse me. That's the thing. So I think that people within this field, people that are awake, you just need to be mindful about how you go about things. Listen to what people are saying. Listen to the ideas and the thought processes. Ignore the personal attacks. Ignore the personal, jabs. Don't go in for it yourself. Don't go for passive-aggressive lines either. If people that believe that are, ignorant or ignoramuses or anything like that, any kind of passive-aggressive jab, because it's always that indirect jab that people eventually get annoyed at, because it's like, all right, if you're trying to educate me, fine, but don't give that little passive-aggressive jab, because that doesn't win your argument. It doesn't make you better than me. And that's really what it comes off as, is somebody is sitting there making themselves off to be better than you. So don't do that. Come at it straightforward, attack the issue, and you might win somebody over. There's been people that I have sparked before. Might not fully win them over. I might not fully win their full attention into the subject, but at least I spark an interest in it that they might go out and do their own research. If that's on them, I leave it at the end on them to do whatever they want. And yes, I can't help myself but debate people if I disagree. And that's just me. I will debate anything because I see it as a good point for me to learn something too, because I'll listen to their argument and I'll do my own research. Then I'll come back at them. And that's the thing, is that it's a great way of reinforcing what you think. If you are truly right, then somebody debating with you should not be a problem. It should be a benefit, because then you can, strengthen your arguments and strengthen your knowledge along the way, because there might have been something you missed. So don't be afraid to debate people, and don't go into a personal attack, because it's a great learning opportunity. And if somebody says that, hey, you're being passive-aggressive or anything like that, apologize and say, that's not how I meant it, that's not what I meant to come across. That way, you push it away, you push it out of the way, so it doesn't build. That's the thing, is if you allow it to build, if you sit there and say, oh, no, that's on you, or blah, 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 that builds an argument. That builds something. Negative. Not positive. Negative. So always go into it as something else, as just the intellectual argument. Keep it at that point. That's very hard to do, and if you get really good at it, you will win more debates than you will lose. Even if not with that person, but other people listening to that debate, they might be like, wow, that's a brilliant argument. So if you present your facts in a great way, you could win people over and not even know it. And it's not a reward system. Don't worry about being rewarded. The reward is passing this knowledge on and getting people on board, because really what we're fighting for is our livelihood, is the future. Not accreditation, not, fame. We're fighting for our future, our children's future. I have, soon to be 2 children. And I have to make sure that their future is secure, that I secure their future. I don't expect the world to do that for me. There's certain people that throw their children to the world and say, take care of my children. I'm making sure that I secure their future with my family, with me, my wife. We're making sure our children have a secure future. And this is what that's about. Even if you don't have children, look at yourself. Look at your future. Right now, it doesn't look too bright because of what the government's doing, what's going on in the world. I mean, nobody's looking at America as being a ruling power anymore. Nobody's looking at America as being right. So that's what you have to think about. That you're winning people over, not to be famous, not to be, get accolades and be, and bathe in the glory of winning a debate, but to actually get more and more people to understand that there's things going on that they don't know. And when you do that, you add more fuel to the fire of freedom. The more people out there knowledgeable, the less, like the police can step on people's rights, the less politicians can, the less that your rights will be eroded away, and you can actually start rebuilding those freedoms back. Just think about it. You watch these videos about police atrocities all the time, and you think, God, if only that person knew, yada yada yada. That's the thing, is that pass that knowledge on. And you may stop this from occurring. Because if the police know that you know your rights, they back off usually. Not all the time, but usually. And if they don't, well, you can sue their ass. So that's the thing, is that it's all about getting the information out there to slow or stop the erosion of freedom in this country. It's happening. People don't want to, accept it. There are people that are so blinded about what's going on that they don't want to accept that our economy is about to collapse. Our currency is on the verge of collapse. They're so blinded to what's going on. And the more we can wake up, the better. I don't want to see my friends die or be left out in the cold or, starve because they weren't prepared. But, there's certain people that you can't save. It's kind of like there's all these people drowning. There's certain people that are willing to grab onto your hand and accept your help. There's other people that are so frantic they'll pull you under with them. And there's others that don't believe they're drowning. And the ones that don't believe they're drowning, you might be able to save, but then again, you might not. And just trying to convince those people that they're not drowning. You got others that might drown because you didn't attend to them. So don't always focus on everybody. I know that sounds cruel, but sometimes there's just certain people you can't save. There's certain people that will never wake up to what's really going on. And you may love and care about them, but you have to let them go sometimes, because getting into arguments with them all the time and they never come around, you're wasting your time on them. When you could spend it on people that are willing to listen, that are willing to, acknowledge that there is something going on, that you can save them. You can give them the information that helps prepare them for what's going to happen. And we're all at different levels of preparedness. I mean, we're not all there. I mean, there's some people that have bunkers and food for 3 years, and there's others that, have food for a week and no bunker. So we're all at different levels of preparedness, But be prepared. Don't sit there and accept, I got a box of ramen and, a can of asparagus or something. That's not going to get you very far. So be prepared, because something could happen tomorrow. But don't, fearmonger either. Don't go around screaming the world's going to end tomorrow. But be prepared and give out the information that's out there. Tell people what's going on. What's really going on, and not conjecturize it. Don't go into deep conspiracies either. That's another thing that gets on my nerves, is people that sit there and go into deep conspiracies. I had somebody on one video that I posted under Liberty the Movement on YouTube, because I have a number of different YouTube channels for varying interest, and I have Liberty the Movement, which is one of them. And that was during the Ron Paul campaign, and I posted one, I think it was about the monetary system. And somebody posted, well, you didn't go into the Zionist blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and he went into this whole big conspiracy. And I was like, well, when we're trying to wake people up, we don't smack them in the face with, the deepest conspiracy we can find. We have to kind of softly lift them out of their bed. We can't expect them to accept something like that at face value. We have to coerce. And I don't necessarily agree with all the Zionist ideas per se. I mean, there could be something to it, but I'm not going to sit there and go to everybody and say, there's Zionist control, and it's just, that the Zionists in Israel are controlling everything. I think that if you go with that route, a lot of people are like, okay, well, that dude's like off his meds or something. I mean, soft. Be soft-handed. Don't be heavy-handed with your conspiracies, because if you go too deep, down the rabbit hole, and you're trying to bring people and get them to follow you, they're not going to go in that rabbit hole, because you sound like a screaming, monster. Like, there's a monster in that hole. I ain't going in there. We need the little white rabbits, that kind of go out there and bring people to the hole, show it to them, and then, lead them in. And that's when you find people like the Alex Jones and the, Glenn Becks, and you actually understand where they're coming from. Because when you're out there, you're like, geez, they sound crazy. They're arrogant. They're, why would I ever listen to them? But when you have somebody that's a little soft-handed, brings you into the scope of things, and you're like, okay, I understand where they're coming from. But I'd rather read the information than actually listen to it sometimes, because it's just like, okay, really? But anyway, we're getting beyond the time here. I'm actually at an hour and 15 minutes into the show. So I'm going to wrap it up here. But again, be soft-handed with people. Don't get into personal attacks. Keep it on, the topic or the ideal or whatever. Ideal, idea, whatever. And you might win people over. So I will leave you with that. I want to say go on our website, libertythemovement.com. I'm doing a lot of different things. I'm trying to get some new stuff up there. Again, the website crashed like a couple months ago, and I had to redo it. So I'm re-adding stuff in phases. So, but I've gotten a pretty good site going again. libertythemovement.com. We have Red Pill Nation up there. We have archive shows. I haven't added the last month's shows in there, but you can find them on YouTube as well under Red Pill Nation 1. I have all the shows listed there. So, yeah. And if you have any ideas, suggestions, go on Red Pill Nation, the group on Facebook, or post it under the in the comments section. Love to hear from you. Subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, and get the word out. Share the videos. Share the audio of the show. Let people know about us, That's how we need to get out there. We need people to get the word out there. I don't have a budget. I have zero budget, okay? So get the word out there. If you like the show, if you don't do that. But just kidding. But if you like the show, just, get the word out there for us, okay? And again, hopefully Johnny will be on Friday. If not, hopefully next week. I hope he starts to feel better. But anyway, have a good night, and thanks for listening.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.